Right, so I thought I would get into a subject that is quite, well, lots of people have an opinion on this. The word witch. Are you a witch? Are you not a witch? Who's a witch? Who isn't a witch? Who can call themselves a witch? Who can't? Um, let's just cut to the chase. Nowadays, pretty much anyone can. Everyone goes around calling themselves a witch on social media, whether they like to dress up in a witchy aesthetic or not. Most of the people, I have to be honest, who conform to my idea, my archetype of what a witch is, don't actually like the word. They'd prefer not to be called witches. They don't tend to refer to them as they don't tend to refer to themselves as witches. But at the end of the day, it's a word that has power. I call myself a witch. Mainly, I mean, I never really used to like the term, but it is a word that has a lot of power still to this day. Even with the amount of rule of three idiots that go running around dressed up in bed sheets calling themselves witches, you would have thought the word witch is kind of a, you know, silly term. That it doesn't really have any power with all these people that are running around kind of making a witchcraft and witches all look soft and new agey. That's not entirely true. There are lots of people that still are scared of witches, scared of witchcraft, mainly because they don't know what it is. Some of them scared of it because they do know what it is. And many aspects of old-fashioned sorts of witchcraft isn't necessarily all good, shall we say. So from what I would say the word witch means, if you are a witch, you'll fall into one of three categories at the end of the day. One is the modern interpretation of witch, which is kind of a religious thing. So there was no real religion of witchcraft until the 20th century. Nowadays there's various different Wiccan traditions, and the people within those traditions use the term witch. They call themselves witches. Some of them do, some of them don't. Some of them just go by the term initiates. But it's fair to say that if you are Wiccan, or you're part of one of those kind of covens, traditions, then the chances are you are a witch, and you probably call yourself a witch, and there's nothing wrong with that. It is quite a religious style of witchcraft. I'd say that's the religious side of witchcraft, the word. But that's one such instance that you could kind of say, okay, this person's a witch. The second one, which is the one that I most likely fall into, is the profession of witchcraft. Back in the day, and I'm talking in ancient times, there was no such thing really as a witch. Everyone practiced folk magic, so everyone practiced some sort of magic. Some people were good at it, some people weren't very good at it. There was lots of traditions within your local community and your family. Everyone had ancestral altars. If you go anywhere apart from sort of in the West, you can go to China, you can go to India, you can go to South America. They've all got ancestral altars. We kind of have left that tradition. We don't really in the West work a lot with, or the mainstream people don't really work a lot with ancestors. They don't. The magic is kind of been killed off in the West, I suppose, to a certain extent. Not entirely, but it certainly went a lot more underground. It was less mainstream. That's starting to come back. But, as really with the invention, I probably shouldn't say invention, but as Christianity took hold in the West, what you'll have is you'll have lots of practitioners that practice loads of different things. Some of them are practice Christian forms of magic. Some of them are herbalists. You know, there's many different professions, midwives, anything. There were a lot of witchcraft laws that meant that if you are guilty of, witchcraft, which is evil magic, then you are a witch. So there were all of these trials and various different things, and lots of people using those laws to get what they want. So what you have is you have people that are accused of witchcraft and found guilty of witchcraft. You know, it's a court of law at the end of the day, the law of the land. You know, if you're found guilty of witchcraft by a judge, you are a witch, whether you kind of are or not. It's one of those things, you know, we think back of lots of people from the witchcraft trials and think, well, they weren't really witches. But technically, where do you draw the line? If you're proven to be a witch in a court of law, technically you are. Are you not? Or are you? You know, it's one of those things. So you have the accused, essentially. I get accused of being a witch all the time. I tend not to say I'm not a witch, because at the end of the day, at least where I live, they're not going to burn me for it. I don't really care. If I went back 100 years ago, maybe I wouldn't use the term, and maybe I'd be a little bit more secretive, just a little bit, with, you know, what I practice and how I meet clients and how I put myself out there. But yeah, again, I'm the professional witch, so someone kind of like a cunning man, cunning folk. I will do a video on cunning folk, possibly in the next video actually, just because it's a term that a lot of people aren't familiar with. But that really, if you're talking about the profession of magic, cunning folk, service magicians, that's probably a better term. People don't know that term, so they just say witch. At the end of the day, the weirdo that lives at the end of the street right next to the woods and does all this weird stuff in the woods and sees clients and casts spells and stuff, people just call me a witch because, well, that's what they think a witch is. So anyway, summary, you've got the religious aspects of witchcraft, modern. You've got the profession of witchcraft, kind of like me, service magician, cunning man, and then you've got the legal definitions and, you know, people that are found guilty of witchcraft, or what the law says is witchcraft. You'll find that some of these people did practice magic, some of them didn't. At the end of the day, when the witchcraft trials were a thing, they were a thing because, hey, we've got this law, hey, I want to get rid of this person, I know what I'll do, I'll accuse them of witchcraft. It doesn't help also that when you've got quite authoritarian regimes, governments, religious institutions, whether it's a king or queen who wants to get rid of one of their wives, or whether it's a religious institution like the Catholic Church that just wants to wipe everything out that isn't it or isn't a part of it, then what you have is you have the goalposts being moved constantly. So 1 minute herbal medicine's fine, and it's fine to be a herbalist. The next minute, well, they're kind of competition, so we'll just kind of call this and include this in the witchcraft kind of umbrella. So you've got a lot, it's a very, very murky world when you're trying to define exactly what a witch is. Technically, the dictionary definition of witchcraft would be something along the lines of someone that uses black magic, evil magic, for their own means. I do that. So, I mean, I know lots of people don't admit it, but I do it all the time. If I'm a magician, I'm a witch, I'm an occultist, I understand the principles of magic. You can sure as shit think that I'm going to use that to my advantage, and I do. as do many other practitioners. Whether they admit to doing that or not, well, that's for them. At the end of the day, I do, and I know a lot of people that do. There was a big kind of push with the modern witchcraft movement, the religious aspect, so with Wicca and that sort of thing, for people within those traditions to try and push a kind of witchcraft isn't evil, witchcraft is nice and it's white magic and we're white witches and all that sort of thing. Back in the days, it didn't really work like that. At the end of the day, you're a practitioner of magic. Are you going to use that magic to get what you want? Yes. How far are you willing to go with that? And that completely depends on, your own morals and ethics. There are some things that I won't do because I don't feel that it's right. I have, my own ethics. If a client comes to me and says, can you do this? Can you kill this person? The chances are I'm gonna say no. The difference between me is I will say, I'm not going to, but technically if you were to do that, this is how you would go about doing it. I don't believe, personally, in censoring knowledge like that. So I do have a lot of conversations with people that aren't particularly nice conversations, and I don't tend to get involved with it. At the end of the day, they're gonna do it anyway. I would rather have the conversation with them to say, are you sure that this is what you want to do? These are the possible repercussions that you might not have foreseen. If you're gonna go ahead with it, that's your problem, that's nothing to do with me, but I'm not gonna do it for you. There are some things that I will do for you. But anyway, we're kind of sidetracking now. But yeah, witchcraft, witches, it's one of those things at the end of the day. I don't think that you can really say this person's not a witch, this person is a witch nowadays, because it's such a big term that's been adopted by so many people that, it doesn't. Some people would argue that it doesn't mean anything anymore. I would say that it does mean something. It is a word that still resonates with people, and it can resonate with someone for bad reasons, i.e., I know certain Christians that would be like, oh, witchcraft, that's evil, because they don't know any better, or maybe they do. But there are other people that just feel, I like the word witch. I see these, things on television with witches, that kind of witchy aesthetic, the pentagrams, the black candles, all that stuff, and they kind of resonate with it, and they feel that there's some sort of current there, and they feel drawn to it, so they want to kind of, call themselves a witch, I guess. I don't really see anything wrong with that. I don't really care, to be honest with you. I don't care for calling people, witches or not. If someone says to me, I'm a witch, then I'm going to say, fine, I don't care, you can call yourself that. I know that a lot of people like to police the word, and can, over intellectualize the word as well. They can say, well, this word comes from this origin, blah blah blah. At the end of the day, words evolve. So I think the word witch, fortunately or unfortunately, has evolved to the point where, anyone can call themselves a witch. It's just it's no big deal. But no, in terms of probably I'd call myself a witch, just because at the end of the day I can't escape people doing that. People see me cast a spell, people see me teach witchcraft and magic and occultism, and they'll say, you're a witch. there isn't no way of escaping the fact that when you do stuff like that and people see you do stuff like that, that's the first word that comes to their mind. It's just a word that I don't really have a problem with. I will do a video about cunning folk, just because cunning folk are, I think, what a lot of people think of when they think of the word witch. That kind of magical practitioner that charges money to do something for them. I suppose technically speaking, if you want the older kind of archetype of a witch is someone probably in the community or just outside of the community that no one really knows. A lot of the time when people approached magical practitioners and cunning folk and that sort of thing to be unwitched was because they thought they were bewitched. They thought someone had cast a spell on them. They thought a local witch had cast a spell on them. But they never really knew who it was. So when you look back, you'll see a lot of clients going to their local cunning folk to try and find out who's cast the spell, so who the witch is, who the secret witch is. And then you also try and, undo whatever the spell is. So a lot of the times there are exceptions, but a lot of the times this witch wasn't someone in the community that you would have known. It was kind of like this mysterious person that must be somewhere around because you think that they've bewitched you, but you don't know who it was. It could have been anyone. And again, when you have that, sometimes people with witchcraft trolls, that sort of thing, people would then try to guess who it is, and then if they couldn't get a magical practitioner to undo the curse or spot the person or whatever, and they went for more of a legal legal means, then you would have people accusing other people of witchcraft, obviously assuming that they do have the intentions of, they believe they are bewitched. Of course, we've already kind of touched on the fact that lots of people have and would have accused other people of witchcraft to sort of get them out of the picture. My business partner Chris, when he gives the talk about the history of witchcraft, makes good point as to when you have a woman that inherits a big estate or a lot of money, and someone wants that land, then sometimes certain people have tried to accuse her of a witch so that then she doesn't have an heir, the land gets seized. It's very much a case of, at the end of the day, there's a witchcraft law. Whether we think this person's a witch or not, we're going to use that law at the end of the day, like many other laws. But again, that is the a witch or not a witch video. Ultimately, I really don't give a shit. Call yourself a witch, I don't care.